Welcome to Caseback Watches. My name is Tim, and in this episode I'd like to speak about the economy, tariffs and the Swiss watch industry. I think it's a good time to address that topic, not only because of US tariffs, but also because of some warnings from late 2024 issued by analysts and by the big players in the Swiss watch market that their profits are under pressure. That's exactly our topic here, world markets and the consumer in the middle and all the challenges around them. And at the end of this video, I think you have a better understanding of the Swiss watch market and the challenges that market is facing right now. And I think you have a better understanding of all the predictions that are around right now, predictions regarding especially watch prices and especially in the United States. And so let's start very simple with the main players here, Richemont, Swatch Group and Rolex. And we can compare them very good with this table, with table 1, and there you see sales in 2024 in billions Swiss francs. And then you can see with ease that Richemont is by far the biggest conglomerate here, followed by Rolex with 10.6 billion, and then comes Swatch with 6.7. And you might wonder now, why is Rolex in the middle? Because it's the largest luxury watch brand in the world by far. But Rolex is a simple company, and Richemont and Swatch, these are, as said, conglomerates with many brands. And here, for example, you see all the brands Richemont has in its portfolio. And there you see some really big names. And so at the end, Richemont is the ultra luxury watch company, all right, or the watch group. And when you compare this with Swatch, then you have a different picture. Here is Swatch, and there you find many mid-tier to low-tier brands we all know, correct? And for the last one, we don't need a table. This is simply Rolex. And now let's begin with Richemont. As said, tariffs are now a huge challenge, but back then in 2024, they already issued a warning and they reported that their profit went down by 17% in 1 year. And the problem back then and today is mainly Asia. And so this means China, this means Hong Kong, this means Macau. And in this region, sales dropped by 25%. So basically, they lost a quarter of their entire sales in that region. And this, of course, creates enormous problems. And the reason for this drop was mainly the economy in China. Secondly, weak real estate market in China. And third, and I think this is the most important factor here, the consumer's mind have changed a bit. For example, people there fancy sometimes the latest iPhone or the Chinese equivalent over a Swiss-made watch, right? So you have a lot of gadgets from tech companies that are in direct competition with Swiss-made watches. And this then led to higher prices. I mean, we all have the feeling when we see the watch industry and the watch market, the forums, the YouTube videos, we all have the feeling that prices went up significantly in the last years. But some of us, I think, thought, well, it might be my subjective view or it could be normal inflation. But no analysts have stated with great certainty that these companies have raised their prices over the last 10 years by an average of 100%. So prices have doubled in the last 10 years, and that's above normal inflation. But you cannot raise prices forever. In the short run, you can compensate these 25% minus in sales with higher prices. But in the long run, people will just not take it. And then you have other products that look suddenly very, very competitive compared to your super expensive Swiss-made watch then. So Asia is the first big problem for the Swiss watch companies and also the economy in Europe. And now we come to the economy of the United States, potentially behind a barrier of tariffs. And Switzerland is on the list with 31% tariffs, which is a huge amount of tariffs really. And this creates a problem because the entire Swiss watch industry sells 17% or makes 17% of their sales in the United States. So it's not overwhelming, but it's a big chunk, and it's an average number, right? You have companies that sell not a single watch in the United States or very few pieces, and other depend 100% on consumers in the US. So this is really a problem for many watch manufacturers here. And we see this now in the stock prices. They went down significantly, of course. And we see speculations about higher watch prices in the United States. And CEOs and analysts say now there is no way to just compensate these 31% with the will of the consumer to pay everything, to give the burden completely to the consumer. So imagine the case when these 31% are in place, then the Swiss watch manufacturers will swallow perhaps 20% of that, and the rest will be your part of the consumer. So you could see then an increase in price for watches in the United States by 10%. And so summary for Richemont: unsolved problems in Asia and a relatively weak European market, strong US market, but yeah, tariffs as a danger. But analysts expect that Richemont will suffer, but not as bad as the Swatch Group because of these high-tier brands. I mean, imagine a person that can spend $15,000 on a watch, then he or she is willing and able, I think, to pay also for the tariffs, or he or she knows some ways around it. Sometimes wealthy people have these possibilities. So not the perfect storm for Richemont, but certainly not a pleasant situation. And now our next topic is the Swatch Group, and the basic scenario is the same. The Swatch Group issued reports about drop in sales and profit in 2024 because of weak consumer markets, mainly in Asia. And the problem here is a bit different now because the Swatch Group has smaller brands in its portfolio. Let's see that table again. And there you have all these brands you know well. All these brands you can purchase between 1,000 and 2,000 bucks. And these brands are in direct competition with other luxury items or items that are seen as luxury, like that iPhone or the Chinese equivalent or that fancy piece of garment. And the second problem is that the Swatch Group cannot raise prices endlessly because people will not accept it. And when you have then that Tissot for 2,000 instead of 1,000, then suddenly that iPhone looks upright cheap and more desirable. And people will ask, is this Tissot really the status symbol with this idealistic value? And very likely the answer will be no. And so the Swatch Group cannot raise prices, and now comes problem number 3. I told you that the entire watch industry in Switzerland makes 17% of their sales in the United States. For Swatch, it's 40% for the entire Swatch Group. 40% of sales are made in the United States. And so when this group faces 31% tariffs, then they are in a very bad situation. They already have competitors, they cannot raise prices endlessly, and so they have to swallow the big chunk of these 31%. And they will do that. So analysts expect that watch prices for Swatch products in the United States will go up by around 10%. And now comes the big exception, and that's Rolex, because the scenario here is different. The situation is different. Rolex doesn't file annual reports about sales and revenue, so we have to estimate a bit, or analysts have to estimate a bit. But insiders are pretty sure that Rolex had a plus of 84% in sales in 2024. 84%. So they almost doubled their sales due to the hype, new models. So they're in a strong position. They can do whatever they want. And when Rolex faces now, let's say, tariffs of 31%, they definitely can raise prices. I mean, it's not very likely that they just say, we will hand over these 31% to the American consumers. Most likely is that they will swallow a part of it, but not like the Swatch Group 20%, perhaps only 15%. And so the predictions are that you will see higher Rolex prices in the future, always in case, of course, that this tariff, this trade war comes not to an end, right? This is always the assumption here. But let's speak briefly about the used and gray market now in the United States. I think you could see their higher prices in the very near future for Rolex watches, because of the uncertainty, okay, the uncertain situation right now. Because when you're a dealer in the United States and you have your collection of Rolexes already in the country, you don't have to worry about anything. And so you're in a very strong position compared to that dealer who is an importer and who is waiting for his merchandise. When you have watches already in the United States, you can market them at a higher price. And I think that's very likely that we see this in the next days and weeks. So, resume: China, unsolved problems for every watch manufacturer because of more competition by other luxury items or just wanted items like that Gucci bag or fake Gucci bag, like that iPhone or other things that are in direct competition to a Swiss-made watch. And watch companies are not stupid, so they will come up with new ideas, with massive advertising and massive new trends. I mean, imagine Rolex did it several times, that they created new models and a trend of a size we couldn't imagine a couple of years ago. And I think the same will happen in the near future here. Summary: tariffs, even if this trade war goes wrong and then we have these 31% tariffs on Swiss-made watches, you will not see prices with a plus of 31% in the United States. These companies will swallow part of it, depending on their power, on their economical situation, which is great, by the way. This is a part I must tell you. When we speak about these companies, then and the hardships and the challenges, it's not existential, believe me, because only in 2024, Richemont, for example, made a profit of 18 billion Swiss francs. This is certainly a lot of money, and this allows to wait when something goes south and to wait for better opportunities. And so I think this point that people expect that the watch industry relocates manufacturing plants and factories into the United States, it's not very likely, because first the Swiss made would be gone, and for the high tier brands this is very important to have that Swiss made. And low tier, yes, maybe. If your watch is made in Switzerland or in Kentucky, is not a big deal, really. But I doubt that Swiss companies would do that, because Swiss CEOs, they are not really known for their willing to make or undertake adventures, to put it mildly. And the amount of uncertainty we see in the US market right now, I think, backs that up. And so I'm pretty sure with that revenue in their pockets, they have absolutely the ability to wait and to see what the future brings, instead of relocating factories from one continent to another. And so whatever happens at the end, it will not harm these super rich companies. It will not harm the people who can afford that 20K watch in the United States with tariffs like that. It will harm basically the normal people. And I think this is not news. This is always the case with, I think, global crisis, that at the end, the bill amounts up for ordinary people, and in our case, ordinary watch collectors. Okay, that's all I wanted to share with you. If you have corrections and other aspects to mention, then put them here in the comment section, please. And now allow me one word about my own import-export business, CasebackWatches.com, where I sell fine leather goods, straps and other things I made myself with my own hands. That's the reason why I often have stains on my hands during watch reviews, and I'm sort of proud of that, because yeah, it's the thing I love. And I have many clients and many customers in the United States, and of course that's a terrible scenario, losing them. And I don't tell you this as a business person, I tell you this as a craftsperson, a watch lover. And I made so many contacts in the US, some of them I consider friends, and it would be of course a terrible outcome when everything ends only because of the global economy or the global trade wars we cannot effect. And I have the strong feeling that we, as normal people, small business owners, are not the big threat here. We shouldn't be targeted that way. So it's a bit sad. But at the end, I'm an optimist, and I think at the end we will see something good. We will see an agreement, and we can carry on with our lives, our passions, and our business. And right now, situation is, I think, unaltered, because these tariffs are not effective right now. So when you want to order something from CasebackWatches.com and you are located in the United States, I think you can do it by now without any fear of large import duties. I think the last order from the US was 3 or 2 days ago, and everything, the tracking, everything looks perfectly normal. And so I think it's not a problem right now. This might change. Of course, then I will deliver an update. But again, I'm an optimist. I think everything will work out fine at the end. All right, and that's the end of this video. Thank you very much for your attention, and until next time.